Good morning and welcome to our briefing, EERE Investment Snapshot Report Overview. Clean energy developments yield major benefits. This is our final briefing of 2024, so ho, ho, ho to all the good boys and girls in our audience. You are very welcome because this is a great way to close out the year. EESI is celebrating 40 years of advancing climate change solutions through congressional education. We were founded by a bipartisan group of members of Congress, and since 1984, we've worked to provide science-based information about environmental, energy, and climate change topics to policymakers and the public. We like our resources to be timely, relevant, accessible, and practical. And we put a lot of thought into how we do that to make sure that our resources are ready before congressional staff even know they need them. What's that look like? Well, a lot of times it looks like this, an online briefing. We were here last week learning about river community resilience on the Tennessee River. Today, we're learning about the amazing impacts of the work of the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Sometimes we're in person on Capitol Hill, but we cover a lot of different topics. In addition to community resilience and rivers, we look at budget and appropriations. We do a briefing every year on the Sustainable Energy in America Factbook. We've done briefings lately on carbon dioxide removal, dam removal, nature-based solutions, and everything we do is always available at www.eesi.org. If you'd like to keep track of what we do, the best way to do that is to subscribe to our bi-weekly newsletter, Climate Change Solutions. And in fact, if you subscribe right now, you'll get the issue that comes out a little bit later today. If you're a regular attendee of EESI's briefings, there is a really good chance that you've heard about the Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, or EERE. You've probably seen a presentation by a leader at EERE or an expert assigned to an EERE office. And why is that? Well, because EERE actually totally rules. It is a very, very hard to imagine a decarbonized clean energy economy without a robust EERE on the cutting edge. And the cutting edge is where the EERE team likes to live. For decades, EERE has made targeted investments to spur clean energy innovation, create good-paying American jobs, improve the health of communities, and support a reliable and resilient energy grid. How impactful are these investments? Well, as it happens, EERE has just published the 2024 EERE Investment Snapshot Report. This all-new resource summarizes the benefits of investments in clean, efficient, and reliable energy technologies over the last decade. And that's what our briefing today is all about, the remarkable progress across the entire EERE portfolio. We're about to hear from EERE leadership and representatives of the private sector about how this progress is delivering multiple benefits to people and communities all across the United States. The complete report is available if you visit the webpage for this briefing or if you visit DOE online at eere.energy.gov. We will put this slide up at the end of the briefing, but this is a quick link to a survey. If you're watching in our online audience today, if you have 2 minutes to take our survey, it means a lot. We read every response. If you have any suggestions for improvement or any issues with the audio or the video feed, please let us know. We'll also have a little bit of time at the end of our briefing for questions, and you can submit questions by sending us an email, and the email address to use is ask, that's ASK, at eesi.org. Or you can tweet us or follow us on social media at EESI Online. Be sure to follow us because we'll be doing real-time coverage of our briefing today on our Instagram story. So we have 4 presenters. Our first presenter today is Alejandro Moreno. Alejandro is the Associate Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy at the Department of Energy. Alejandro is no stranger to EESI briefings. Alejandro, it's always great to have you. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it, and we'll call up the slides. And while I'm waiting, just want to say it's a real honor to be here, particularly your last webinar of the year, and really very much appreciate the partnership and collaboration with EESI over the years. And thank you to everybody else who joined. I know it's a busy time on the Hill right now. We certainly appreciate your interest in EERE and the work that we do, and hope you get some useful information out of this briefing today. So as Dan said, I'm here to talk about the investment snapshot report that we just published earlier this year. This actually came from a request from Congress to be able to provide clear data and evidence behind the work that we do. And so we took the chance to look both backwards and a little bit forwards to show the value proposition in many different ways of the technologies we work on, and to show how EERE's work over the years has helped the U.S. realize that value proposition. If we go to the next slide, As Dan said, I'm not going to repeat my title because my time is short here, but I am the senior most career officer in EERE. Our assistant secretary right now is Jeff Marudian, and I report directly to him. For EERE itself, I think some of you are probably familiar with us, maybe some of you not. We are effectively the government's clean energy innovation hub. We are responsible for the vast majority, not all of it. We don't do nuclear, we don't do CCUS, but the vast majority of technologies that you think of when you think of clean energy, from wind, solar, EVs, bioenergy, hydrogen, the R&D to ensure that the US is on the cutting edge of those technologies sits within our shop. We are broken. We think of ourselves along those 5 sectors you see on the slide right now, which really relate to 5 sectors in the economy. Agriculture is probably the one where we have a lot of knock-on effects on agriculture, but we don't necessarily have a pillar focused on it. And for those interested in the budget structure and the appropriations, we are typically appropriated by office, and we have different technology offices largely for each individual technology. So we have a solar office, a wind office, a geothermal office, a water office that covers both hydropower and marine energy. On the transportation side, we have a vehicles office, covers everything to do with EVs, as well as 2 fuels offices, one for hydrogen and one for bioenergy, which is really focused on sustainable aviation fuels. And then in buildings and industry, we have a buildings technology office, an industrial efficiency office, and then to cap it off, an advanced manufacturing office. We also have one-time special office that we co-manage with the Department of Transportation, called our Joint Office for Energy and Transportation, which is focused on expanding vehicle charging infrastructure across the country. That is specific to the IIJA. If we go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the snapshot. I told you about that. We'll go straight to the next slide. How we work, a couple sort of high level sort of context for how we end up doing all the work that we do. The vast majority of our funds are, we support innovation in one of 2 ways. One, we work directly with the national labs. We steward the National Renewable Energy Lab. The vast majority of funding that NREL gets is from us, from EERE, and that's across almost all of the technologies we work in. We also have really significant programs at a number of other labs, at the big applied directorates at Pacific Northwest National Lab, at Oak Ridge, at Sandia National Lab, at Argonne National Lab, at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and at Idaho National Lab. We have some programs at others, but those are the major laboratories that we work with. And we also spend about half of our money we award competitively to the private sector. We have about 2,000 active awards right now with the private sector, and you see that map on the left-hand side of your screen for all of those. And the vast majority of the work we do, as Dan said, it's obviously critical to decarbonization and to reducing emissions, improving air quality. It's also vitally important for reducing costs of energy and household expenditures, for increasing the reliability and the security of our energy system, and for increasing the economic competitiveness of American companies and American technologies. And so if we go to the next slide, we think through and took a look back at our work with those big picture impacts in mind, and specifically looked at the impacts that you see here. We'll go through each one of those in order. And what I'm going to do now is just give you a sampling of the type of information that we found in this report. You can look at the entire report, and we continue to build up this evidence base. This report was a really good starting point for us, but it's certainly not the end point. So let's dive right in. We go to the next slide on jobs. You certainly hear a lot about the clean energy sector being a major job creator in the United States, and that it is. What's really important, of course, is net jobs, because in any transition, some jobs are gained, some jobs are lost. It's much more important that we gain more than we lose, and that really is the case here. It depends a bit on the reports, but anywhere from 500,000 to 2 million net jobs in the clean energy sector is what's predicted over the next decade, or actually I think it's the 2020s creation. About 3.5 million people in the US work in the clean energy sector. That's about 5% of all new jobs in the United States. And just to get a sense of within the energy sector, it's about 79% of jobs in the power sector are related to clean energy technologies. And that's largely because the vast majority of new power generation that's coming online is renewable energy or renewable energy and storage. It's also really important the quality of those jobs. So we know now, we've done a significant amount of work, including the US EER report, that clean energy jobs tend to pay more than your average jobs. They tend to have higher rates of unionization. And that's even within the energy sector now, which is new. That's actually quite new in the last couple of years. And they are major drivers of apprenticeship programs in the trades. And that's, we've seen through some of the work that the Department of Labor has done, which we can report on. If we go to the next slide. Looking at advancing economic growth. And the important thing here is first to just think of the market size for clean energy, which has absolutely exploded over the last few years. It's now a $2 trillion market. To put that in context, clean energy represents about 6% of the US GDP and our growth. And that's roughly evenly split between manufacturing, power capacity, new electricity generation, and direct-to-consumer sales. And the major technologies driving that are solar, wind, batteries, heat pumps, and electrolyzers. And we've seen about a 400% growth just in those technologies since 2015. And so it's a huge driver. EERE itself is catalytic in that growth. We are, by definition, we will always be a very small portion of the total funding in that space. And particularly as private sector investment begins to get catalyzed, overall will be a smaller percentage. But the work we do has a disproportionate impact. We know we've got about 8,000 patents that we've awarded. And those are cited almost twice as much as you would expect just based on the normal metrics. They're particularly innovative, and we target places in the sector, in the value chain and in the production chain that the private sector doesn't reach. And a lot of our awards, we started to look, for example, at some of our small business awards. Companies with a small business award from us, for example, are almost twice as likely to get follow-on patents and follow-on investments than companies that didn't work through us. And just in the 5 years between 2010 and 2015, we commercialized about 160 different technologies just through our national labs and awards. And we're starting to develop, we're looking to update that through 2023 as well. But if you go to the next slide, we have global competition. I think everybody knows that. China passed the US in 2020 in terms of overall investment, R&D investment in the clean energy sector. Sorry, not overall investment, R&D investment. And there are 13 other countries in the world right now that invest more in energy per capita than the US. Right now, China has significantly surpassed us just in the last few years. They spent about $17.5 billion in 2023. We spent about $11 billion. So that gap is continuing to grow. I will say, EERE, we are doing our best to slow that trend. Our work, we've got, in clean energy technologies writ large, we've gotten about 700 investments, not just EERE, since 2021, with more than $200 billion just in domestic manufacturing. Our funding specifically in EERE has led to on the solar space, the development of dynamic solar controls, which catalyzed about $2 billion worth of investment here. Also in solar, we've been the primary driver of thin film technologies, which is the primary US developer of solar, with First Solar in Ohio. Our work is expected to enable about 10 gigawatts a year of electrolyzer manufacturing. And so the work that we are doing, if you tie together the message I just gave before, with the direct connection of EERE's work being catalytic to American manufacturing and American technology leadership, it is one of the tools that we most have to be able to close that gap with China and with other countries, not just China, that are continuously now investing more in R&D, in clean energy R&D, and in those technologies that will form the backbone of the energy sector in the future. And we want those technologies to be American. Next slide. Talking about cost reduction, that is the other major thing that we do, and both energy costs and household and business expenditures. I think everybody on this call, at least, is probably aware that at that by now wind and solar power, even with batteries, are by far the cheapest source of just energy on the power system, electricity on the power system. Obviously, there are other factors in the power system that matter, including capacity and flexibility. But we are seeing more and more that solar with storage is cost competitive with fossil fuel generation and other traditional forms of generation. But also on the efficiency side, we know that there have been about $800 billion in energy costs saved using today's prices from efficiency technologies that have been adopted over the last 30 years. And we know that just within EERE's Better Buildings program, using efficiency technologies that mostly were developed in the US, or sorry, mostly developed through EERE, that we've saved companies and $20 billion. We've also saved 20 billion gallons of water and about 200 million metric tons of emissions reductions. Same thing for industrial plants. Our Better Plants program has helped more than 270 manufacturers save $10.6 billion in energy costs. So cost reduction is the single biggest driver that we've had, and it's actually how we set our goals. Across EERE, the specific R&D targets that we tend to have are focused squarely on cost reduction. Next slide. Realize I'm running low on time and there is a ton to talk about. Really want to focus on health as well. Obviously, the work that we do is absolutely essential to emissions. It's also really critical to air quality. And you see some of the statistics here, which are pretty sobering, frankly. These are stats that I didn't know myself before going and doing some of this research, but just looking at the ability to save just from a financial perspective, $77 billion a year in health impacts. But obviously, what this really comes down to is people and their health and their ability to continue to live and live productive lives in our country without being sent to the hospital or dying prematurely due to air pollution. And that's not just a climate thing. That is very much a criteria pollutant thing here. And it's not just from large scale energy power generation. It's obviously tailpipe emissions from vehicles and other point source emissions are just as important there. And I think our last slide on specific impacts, just on, or maybe we have two more, on system resilience, you see two elements here. I mean, we know that the power system, and I'll talk about this more in a second, using advanced technologies can be much faster to respond, right? We're moving towards a system where we automate and control the power system based on inverters and based effectively on digital technologies. And what that allows us to do is both respond really, really, really fast to any disturbances in the system, much faster than a human being could ever respond, but also to isolate parts of the system so that if there is a outage or a threat on the power system, you can isolate that really quickly and not have it cascade to the rest of the system. And we're starting to see that actually play out. As we see more large weather events and more intense large weather events, we see that systems, and in many cases right now, it's neighborhoods or campuses that were designed specifically using best-in-class technologies that involve both usually renewable energy, distributed energy, microgrids, and automated repair and control systems. We see that they survive events faster or longer, rather. They survive events with fewer outages. They recover faster. The other big element is efficiency technology. So we look, for example, at windows or more efficient lighting that requires less energy, and we see that people are able to go for longer without power and maintain the services in their house. And refrigeration is a really good example. We're looking at a lot of technologies right now. We're building out with cold storage. What that means is if the power goes out, your fridge can stay on for like 1 to 2 days, which gives you infinitely better chance because the vast majority of power outages don't last longer than that. And then last slide, I think I jumped ahead and talked about this a little bit, but really beyond just resilience to specific weather or cyber events, The power system of the future that we are developing is one that can be much faster, much more automated, and much less likely to lose power, much less likely to have large outages when the power goes out, and much more likely to come back faster when the power does go out, which does happen. So last slide, I'll leave you just with some of the key takeaways here. The technologies that we work on in EERE cover every single part of the economy, and they are the technologies that will be the backbone of the energy system in 20, 30 years. In many cases, they already are becoming that. It's not just in the US. Regardless of the rate of adoption in the US, the rate of adoption in the rest of the world is continuing to accelerate at orders of magnitude, and across transportation system, the electricity system, the industrial system. We deeply want US technologies to be at the forefront of that, both at home to make sure that we have control and visibility over the design of those technologies, and abroad to ensure that our companies have markets to export the technologies that they're making into. I expect we'll hear more about the interest specifically from the private sector. Do not take my word from that. Take Lisa and others' word for what that means to their companies. And so with that, I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. That was a great presentation. You ran through things a lot. I mean, EESI could just do briefings about DOE and EERE. There's so much to do, but you did a great job running through everything. If anyone would like to go back and revisit Alejandro's slides, you can do so by visiting us, www.eesi.org. Just click on the briefing page. It's right there. Of course, you can also download the report. If you want to, we've actually done a lot of DOE or featured a lot of DOE folks in our briefings this year. So whether you want to hear about Earth shots from the Deputy Secretary David Turk, if you want to revisit who participated in our Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Expo over the summer, we've done a lot. And so search for DOE at our website if you want to learn more and do deep dives. We've had folks from the labs and in fact, even some of our briefings that didn't specifically feature DOE. For example, we did one on US-China relations in the lead up to COP29, and Alejandro hit on a couple points there that I think could be really relevant. So thank you so much for your presentation. So next, we have three speakers. It's going to be a little bit different. They're going to give some sort of commentary on what they just heard from Alejandro, and I'm going to introduce them as we go, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Excuse me, I'm going to sorry, I got that wrong. I'm looking at the wrong sheet of paper. I'm going to introduce them as we go, and they're going to, yeah, they know what to do. Our first presenter today is a great friend of the Environmental Energy Study Institute, Lisa Jacobson. Lisa is the president, the Business Council for Sustainable Energy, and a little bird told me you might be celebrating a special day today, Lisa. So happy birthday. I'll turn it over to you.
I couldn't get a better birthday gift than hearing about this amazing work that is happening at EERE. And I'm just thrilled to have this kind of report at our disposal. And, without getting into some comments on it, first, thank you to EESI for all the work that you do. Thanks to everybody who's joining us today. And, this type of information is critical. And I really like the points that Alejandro made at the end, because I think that very much mirrors the whole focus of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy. The Business Council for Sustainable Energy is an energy trade association. We're 30 years strong. Our core industry sectors are energy efficiency, natural gas, and renewable energy. But as you just heard, when you think of the work that EERE does, we span the entire economy, and we work in new technology areas every day. And we're focused on U.S. innovation, U.S. competitive opportunities, and ways to make lives and businesses better for Americans. So, I mean, it's a very exciting time in the energy sector, but none of the progress that we have made could be possible without partnership. When I think about the Department of Energy, when I think about all the offices within EERE, it's all about how do we develop technology, identify barriers to deployment, and then work in partnership to overcome them. So the work of EERE day in and day out, the Business Council for Sustainable Energy also tries to track these results. We look around the country at the projects our members are doing. It's commercial buildings in Colorado Springs, Colorado, energy storage in Illinois, offshore wind on New Jersey and New York, energy services all over the country, but here focused on New York, geothermal in Texas, hydrogen in Los Angeles. I could go on. These projects, many of them were developed in partnership with the offices in EERE. And just like EERE, we track those benefits too. We track them in terms of dollars invested, jobs created, community benefits. So when we look out into the needs that we have in the energy sector, which number one are to make sure that we have energy access and affordable energy for Americans and businesses. That is job number one. Second, making sure that we have the infrastructure we need so that we can continue to provide those services and be ready for unexpected changes, whether they be things like natural disasters or just changing needs of the grid. We also want to make sure that we maintain our innovation and competitive edge. As you heard from Alejandro, we are here servicing our markets, which are growing in the clean energy sectors, but we also are looking outside of our borders to serve those that need energy services around the world. And we're not out there alone. So we need to maintain, and I would argue, expand the investments that we're making in public-private partnerships through the Department of Energy and other federal agencies to ensure that we continue to lead. Then we also need to be thinking about opportunities for manufacturing and jobs here at home. We have to make sure that as we are growing, we're looking throughout the country for opportunities and community benefits. And I think EERE's programs not only track them, they deliver on those benefits. So very optimistic thinking about the future. We're at a point now where we're likely to begin increasing our energy needs, that be in the power sector as well as throughout the economy. We need to serve more manufacturing here at home. We need to support things like innovative technologies in the technology and AI arena. We need to focus on things that will decarbonize and provide more opportunity to electrify our economy. All of this requires affordable, reliable, secure energy services. And the partnerships that we get with EERE enable our technologies to move into the marketplace. I look forward to spending more time in the Q&A to discussing some of these projects and what EERE has delivered for BCSE members a little bit later. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great. Next, we are going to hear from Paula Glover. Paula is the president of the Alliance to Save Energy. I am a proud alumnus of the Alliance to Save Energy. Paula, every day I get to have you on one of EESI's briefings is a great day. Thank you for joining us today. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about how everything is going at EERE and how your members are working to leverage those investments.
Sure. So thank you, Dan, for the invitation, and thank you for all the work that you do. And obviously, thank you to EERE and DOE for the investments and the focus that they have, not just on energy efficiency, but also on R&D, because it's important for us to always be thinking about new technologies and what we're going to be doing next. I'm really pleased to be here to represent the Alliance to Save Energy. We're a coalition of businesses, policymakers, environmental justice advocates, academia, et cetera. And we're all committed to advancing energy efficiency and thinking about and working with federal policymakers to do that. We understand and believe that efficiency is the foundation for our economic growth, for our energy security, and quite frankly, for our environmental sustainability. And for more than 47 years, this is what the Alliance has been really focused and championing. Efficiency is the most cost effective, we are fuel neutral, and we are the equitable solution to reduce energy waste, to reduce energy costs, to create jobs, to ensure an affordable and resilient energy future. And the 2024 EERE Investment Snapshot is so relevant to our work because it highlights these real world benefits of investment in energy efficiency. We've already heard Alejandro talk about the $800 billion that's saved in energy costs since 1980. These savings aren't abstract. They translate to lower energy bills for families and businesses, making energy more affordable. But more importantly, that frees up dollars for families and businesses to invest in other things that they need. And so we want people to be able to have more money, whether that's disposable income to go on vacations and do fun things, but just money to get through their day-to-day expenses. Efficiency also supports more than 2 million jobs around this country, across construction, in manufacturing, in energy services. These jobs are resilient, they're local, they can't be outsourced. Efficiency really does add to our local economies. And efficiency, I think, builds resilient, right? Energy efficient buildings, these technologies, they use less energy, they keep our homes and businesses operational longer, safe, etc. Especially during extreme weather and during any other kinds of disruptions. But what we know is we have new challenges. Our energy needs continue to grow across this country. We have rising energy demand that's driven by emerging technologies, that's driven by economic growth, and we can expect more of that. We at the Alliance believe in the importance of technology. We call it active efficiency, and it's this approach where we're using traditional efficiency with digital tools and smart systems to create demand flexibility and to make our systems smarter, faster, and more dynamic. We want to maximize our productivity of every unit of energy that we're using, and tools like advanced sensors, AI, connected buildings. These are the efficiency of yesterday, but also of tomorrow. We need these kinds of innovations. At the Alliance, we always say efficiency is the first fuel because it's the fastest, it's the most affordable, it's the cleanest way for us to meet our demand. And without it, our use in the United States would be 60% higher today without energy efficiency. Efficiency also, though, it drives our global competitiveness. By reducing energy waste, we lower production costs, we attract investment, and we ensure that our industry can lead in this new global clean energy market. Finally, we believe that energy efficiency is essential to national security. It helps reduce our energy demand and makes our grid more resilient to cyber attacks and disruptions. It reduces our reliance on imported energy and ensures that we make the most of our resources. So we have to unlock the potential. We've been doing this for many, many years. EERE has led the way, and we need to prioritize and continue and sustain these types of investments in efficiency moving forward. Federal funding does help us unlock private investment. Every dollar that federal government makes in efficiency includes another $2 to $4 that in private investment. So all of this together is really what's going to get us there. And we at the Alliance are so excited not only to work with EERE and continue to support the work that they're doing, but we're excited about the investments that have been made and that the investments that will be made in the future. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Paula. As a reminder to our online audience, Lisa has said a lot of interesting things. Paula has said a lot of interesting things. Our next panelist is also going to say a lot of interesting things. If you have questions, you can send us an email, and the email address to use is ask, that's ask@eesi.org, and we'll do our best to incorporate the questions we get into our Q&A. That brings up our third presenter, our post-Alejandro presenter, Grant Gunnison. Grant is the founder and chief executive officer of Zero Homes. Grant, thank you very, very much for joining us on our briefing today.
Thank you for having me as well. It's great to be here. It's great to see these briefings come out. There is so much important information that everyone needs to see in these, and the louder we can be about all the great things that are happening, the better. Let me tell you a little bit about Zero Homes, our organization, and some of the investments that we're seeing and how that's sort of impacting our part of the market. Zero Homes is a technology and marketplace business. We built some digital technology to make it really accessible for folks around the country, particularly underserved communities, to get access to these new efficient technologies. So things like batteries, heat pumps, water heaters, solar, weatherization, et cetera. We're really building the frictionless experience to deliver that for folks, and so they can actually get these things installed in an affordable basis. A little bit more about that technology. It's smartphone based, so basically anyone with a homeowner can scan their home, take a handful of pictures and be able to get quotes that will actually work to deliver projects for their homes. And the very cool thing about that is we don't have to put boots on the ground. So we actually can beam experts around the country in some of the most inaccessible parts of the country to help homeowners understand what these technologies can do for them, and then we deliver them with local trade partners. And so, folks in Alaska, in the most rural parts of Colorado and Minnesota, et cetera, we're actively serving today. We are also running low-income programs. We have a partnership with the city of Chicago, serving some of the folks that are in, literally the lowest tax brackets in America, driving real savings and real health improvements for them, meaning something on the order of $1,000 to $2,000 in annual fuel bill savings are something that we're really delivering to folks today. So they're real tangible impacts for the livelihoods of these folks around the country, which is very cool to see, that we're able to drive these things with these new technologies. And a lot of those technologies have been driven off investments that EERE has made. So one of the portions of this impact report talked about heat pumps, some of the cold climate innovations that have been brought to fruition over the past several years off the back of many of the investments that EERE has made are driving real impact, and we get to see that on a daily basis for folks in folks' wallets and in their day-to-day lives in their homes. As well as the carbon impacts, right? And sort of dogmatically, we are an electrification business. We are here to drive the all-electric future and deliver the benefits that those technologies can provide. So it's very cool to see, not just in the technology space and heat pumps, but also in the infrastructure space as well for a lot of the co-ops, GNTs, basically rural America. They're severely underserved in accessing these new technologies, and there are billions of dollars being funneled into helping those institutions build the infrastructure that's necessary in order to decarbonize, manage grid load, which is a very hot topic at the moment, and then ultimately drive savings for the homeowners, businesses, commercial buildings in those spaces as well. So that is really our vertical, buildings through and through, and just making it as easy as possible to enable folks to be able to get these technologies and do so affordably. So I'll leave my time there and happy to jump into the discussion. Look forward to a productive and interesting conversation here.
Thank you, Grant. Alejandro, I think it's fair to say our panelists are in violent agreement with you about the great work that ERE is doing and the importance of that work for the private sector and the clean energy economy generally. Before we move on and start getting into the rest of the questions, just wanted to give you an opportunity if you had anything you wanted to reflect on from what we heard from Lisa and Paula and Grant.
No, I mean, I think, as you said, there seems to be violent agreement all around. I really like, Paula, what you said about the cost savings not being abstract. And that's something that's so, I mean, on the one hand, it's obvious, but it's really easy to forget. We talk in these gigantic numbers, $800 billion. Like who can really conceive of that? And remembering that what that translates to is cost savings to individuals and better quality of life. And that's ultimately what we're here for. That's ultimately the government's role. So I appreciate, Paula, the way you brought that down to earth.
Yeah, it is. That statistic is incredible. And, one thing I remember, one thing I think a lot about is the concept of energy productivity. The idea that we squeeze more GDP out of the same amount of energy and how there's just so much more potential and efficiency in a lot of these other clean energy R&D investments is how you unlock all of that. And it's, reducing waste that there's still, even though we've made so much progress, there's still so much embedded in the system that we can squeeze out. Paula, I don't know if you have anything you want before we move on to the question, since Alejandro called you out, I'll give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think my only response would be something that Alejandro actually mentioned at the end of his presentation, and that we're really focused on the Alliance, which is the effective storytelling of the work that we do. And I think to the point, right, that how many times have I used statistics that I didn't really know, I knew what it meant, but I also knew that the people I was sharing with had no idea what that really meant, right? When you say $800 billion in energy cost savings, what the heck does that mean for most people? That doesn't really mean anything. And so I think collectively, we have to do better at talking about our work in a way that's real for people. And it translates into something, not just the big ideas, but what does this mean every day for folks? And this report, I think, takes us on a path to being able to do that in a real way.
Well, let's move on to our Q&A. Lisa, it's been a little while since we've heard from you, so maybe you'd be willing to take the first stab at this, and then we'll obviously give Paula and Grant and Alejandro a chance to chime in. The report that we've been talking about today it's the sort of present tense and past. But there's obviously a lot of future ahead of us. And a lot of the trends that we're describing today are going to continue. As you look ahead, Lisa, for the sectors that your organization represents, how will the private sector continue to build on these investments? And what do you see in the future for the role of private investment, the role of partnership with the Department of Energy and EERE? And what do you see going forward, and sort of how these sort of how the sector will continue to evolve?
Well, I think just starting from that, I mean, there's so much there, but I mean, what are the trends that we're seeing? We're seeing increasing energy demand throughout the economy. We're seeing global energy markets expanding in the areas where EERE and the Business Council for Sustainable Energy work. And, we're seeing a lot of needs at the community level, whether that be, keeping energy costs down, making sure we have the supply chains we need and the workforce we need so that we can have, reliable, safe energy system. So there's a lot going on all at once. But when I look at, what our members are doing and what, where DOE can continue to partner, I think on one set is kind of evaluating the current landscape that we are in. There's a lot of work that's done by the labs as well as these individual programs at EERE that are kind of on the cutting edge of what's going on in our economy and where energy fits in. And then once they, identify key issues, they drill down on the possible trends, and then they look to partner and partner significantly with the private sector to come up with new technology solutions or new processes or applications so that we can meet the moment with what we need in our energy system. And then I also see, once we get a little further down the commercialization pathway, they're vital in terms of overcoming barriers. And one of the biggest barriers is risk. There are risks when we're trying something new. So there might be risk to a technology. It may be an existing technology, but we're using it in a new way. It may be that the technology is well known, but we haven't really financed it at scale. So all this work, as we go down the research, development, deployment, demonstration path that DOE provides and does it in partnership with the private sector along the way, is vital to making sure that we're competitive, that we are getting these technologies to people and businesses every day, and then we are able to take that to the global markets. So I think BCSE at this time of growth and this time of urgent need to make sure that we have the energy to power our economy is looking for more of those types of partnerships.
Thanks. And before we move on, Lisa, I mentioned this in my intro, but you all, in partnership with Bloomberg NEF, produce the Sustainable Energy in America Factbook every year. And that is another great resource for folks in our audience today to take a look at. It covers a lot of ground, and it's incredibly authoritative in terms of how the different trends are working, and it's a really tremendous resource. So I just wanted to include a quick plug there. We'll
Thank you.
be presenting that to the congressional audience early next year, I anticipate. So folks should keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, it should be out in February, and very much look forward to sharing the findings with your audience.
Great. Paula, I'd love to give you a crack at this one too. What do you see in the future for how the private sector, for how the Alliance's members and your constituents, how do you see the future unfolding in terms of leveraging the kinds of investments that EERE is making and will continue to make?
Yeah, I think for us, we're going to continue to do that, right? Leverage the current investments and think really creatively about what's out there and available, right? So thinking about, right, the new dollars that go to weatherization programs and how weatherization programs across the states are changing, maybe expanding in ways that can meet, right, the need that we have known has always been out there. I think this idea of universal access is really important. And so for us, our members, we're thinking and working across the country to ensure that all kinds of customers and all kinds of locations, rural and urban, are getting access to money, technology, services, in fact, right, and opportunities. And so how do we think about doing that across a very broad landscape where it looks really different, and different technologies work differently in different places, or people like different things in different places. And so we have to kind of acknowledge, right, the locality of decision making. And so that's what we're going to be working on at the Alliance, right? It's this idea of universal access of efficiency technologies across, because whether we move towards electrification by 2030, 2050, or not at all, we have to get our demand down. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is through efficiency. And we can't not pick communities that get access to it. Everyone actually has to have it, just for us to kind of keep things going the way that they are now. And so that's really where we are at the Alliance.
And Grant, in the building sector, a lot of the work that you all do, a lot of the progress we've made in building energy efficiency has an origin story at EERE or in one of the labs. But going forward, we have a lot of room to improve in the building sector. What do you see in terms of future opportunities to leverage the investments ERE is making to, make our homes and commercial buildings and other types of buildings more efficient and ultimately, less carbon intensive?
Yeah, I would double down on what Paula has to say here. It's all about accessibility. Homeowners today can really only access energy efficiency services Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That doesn't work for a huge part of the economy. Folks that are low income, folks that are in disadvantaged communities, folks that are in rural communities, can't wait a couple of weeks to get an appointment, a few hours for someone to drive out to their house, a few hours to meet with this person. We need to make it instant. Let's make it, make these services available 24/7, 7 days a week, instant in folks' hands. There's a real opportunity here to really make it possible for a huge part of the economy, and tens of millions of homeowners don't have access to these sort of basic improvement services, and there's real impact to be driven there. And so, we've done a lot of work at the component level to make some really great new technologies that can really improve the efficiency of buildings and whatnot. Truth is that there's 60 million homes today that run on fossil fuels, and tens of millions of those homes can't access these new technologies. So I think the future really is going to be all about making it as affordable as possible and easy as possible for homeowners and building owners alike to be able to access these, pretty remarkable technologies. We're talking about 300 or 400% efficiency increases across some of these technologies. That's remarkable. That's nothing to sneeze at. So it's all about making it easy and cost effective to get access to these things, so that we're not leaving folks behind. There are large swaths of the population today that are absolutely being left behind. So anyways, that's what we're focused on. And I think there's a huge amount of opportunity there to drive serious impact.
You reminded me, my buddy Bill Fay, who I worked with in the Energy Efficient Codes Coalition, he would say, you're not trading off, you're trading up. Right. And I feel like when I think of building codes, when I think of appliance and equipment standards, the next thing is better. And giving people access and choice that's a big part of that. Because as we all know, a lot of energy efficiency is kind of invisible. It's hard to see. And it works best when it's just kind of embedded and it's magically there. But that magic obviously doesn't start from nothing. It starts with, all of the magic wands at EERE who are able to make that happen. We're coming up on the hour mark, but I want to make sure that we get to this last question. And Alejandro, maybe it makes sense to start with you, and then we can give, if Lisa and Paula and Grant are stimulated to offer any additional commentary. But we're talking about the 2024 report. And we've just done a future look, and there's a lot of work that remains to be done. Are there topic areas or data that are not covered by the report in its current form that you would like to see EERE be able to provide public information about going forward to help people understand the true extent of the impact that EERE delivers?
Absolutely. And I think what you see here today and what's in the report is really just a foundation. It's the beginning of a more sort of a broader effort to collect the data. And we've been doing this for years, but I think the request that we got from the Hill was really helpful to focus our efforts in really developing that evidence base. So I mean, just as some examples, I think some of the data that we have on patents and our work is it ends a little far back for my taste, and we're looking to update all that. But I would say, the question to all of you, everybody on the panel and everybody in the audience, if there are areas where you think it would be really interesting to hear more and have more evidence at your fingertips, let us know. Either talk Dan to EESI or reach out directly. I'd really like to hear that from others.
And so Alejandro's posed the question, Grant, Paula, Lisa, maybe we'll go in the reverse order this time. Are there other data points that you all think would be really helpful to have in your work to advance efficiency, advance climate action in the sectors you work with? Grant, happy to give you the first stab at that, and then we can hear from Paula and Lisa.
Mute myself there. I think one of the things that EERE has been really good at is focus at the component level, talking about how do we make better boxes for, lack of better phrasing, but, there are a lot of other services that can be invested in, specifically around residential buildings and the like, and how we go about getting those solutions installed in homes. And it would be great to get a better understanding and some more data out into the ecosystem around how exactly those dollars are being spent from utility programs and just at large, and bringing to light, how efficient we're being with those dollars today. So there aren't a lot of resources there. You have to do a lot of digging, frankly, to bring some of those numbers up. So would be awesome to get some of that pushed out into the ecosystem to really help, programs compare to each other, see what is best in class, share how effective we're being so that we can improve across the board, I think would be my ask.
Paula, over to you.
Sure, I think I would have two. One, to kind of echo what Grant said, because I think that's really good. I'd love to have a sense of, geographically where technologies work better versus other things. I think, heat pumps is a great example of an argument that goes back and forth about, is it variable heat pumps? Is it cold weather? Like, to have some scientific data that just kind of tells us the truth about where, not that things don't work everywhere, but where is it more advantageous? I think, and then beyond that, Alejandro started his presentation talking about the national labs, and I think it'd be great to get more information out to people about what the national labs have available to community. I sit on 2 advisory boards for NREL, and the number of times that I talk about the RES stock, Comstock, and all of these tools that they have that, people don't know are available to them. And so as we're thinking about universal access, part of it is that people don't have the information. They don't know I can go to NREL if I'm a small urban planner in a small town, and that there are these tools that are available to me to help me figure some things out. And so to the extent that we can do more of that and get that information out, and certainly ways that the Alliance can partner to get that information out, I think would be really, really valuable.
Lisa?
Yeah, I want to go back to Alejandro mentioned small businesses. Business Council for Sustainable Energy has a small and medium-sized business division called Clean Energy Business Network, and they partner a lot with the Department of Energy and EERE about going to your point, Paula, making sure small businesses and communities know about the resources and the opportunities to partner with the federal government in the energy space. And it's across a multitude of technologies and applications. And that's where, that's where jobs are created. That's where, innovation happens. That's where people see results on the ground. So continuing to highlight how the Department of Energy is helping small and medium-sized businesses, I think would be a really good expansion opportunity for future reports. I would just say, I think about, the benefit that we've had from the energy employment report that the Department of Energy releases. I don't know if it started 10 years ago or, we are into a decade at least, or close to one, on that report, where we're basically looking across the energy sector at all the jobs in different subsectors of our energy economy. I think of this report as being as impactful as that over time, really showing, where U.S. innovation is leading around the world, and how, the federal government and taxpayer dollars are really leveraging private sector action and creating economic benefits at the community level. So I would think this has tremendous potential, and I'm so pleased that Congress encourage, a new way of thinking about how you're reporting. Commend you all.
That sounded pretty good to me, Alejandro. Any final word?
Well, I think we'll leave it with that. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Great. Well, I would like to say thank you to our tremendous panelists. Alejandro, it is always great to work with you and your amazing team at EERE. Thank you so much for joining us today. Lisa, Paula, and Grant, thank you so much for joining us today to help put a lot of these report results and impacts in context and help relate them to what the private sector is doing and what your organizations are doing. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. I also am lucky that I show up to these things and everything is just kind of automatic. And that's because I have a great team. And so I'd like to say thanks to Dan O, Amory, Allison, Anna, Molly, and Nicole for all of their tremendous hard work, not just on this briefing, but really all of our briefings. We do a lot of briefings. Plus, we do a lot of writing. Plus, we do a lot of newsletters. We even do a lot of podcasts. And it requires a ton of work, and obviously could not do any of this stuff without them. They're tremendous. We also have behind the scenes a great videographer today, Lynn, who always does a great job. All of the videographers we work with are awesome, but thank you so much today, Lynn. And special shout out to our many, many friends at EERE who helped convince us to do this briefing, who've helped us over the course of the year, accessing folks at DOE who can help talk about what they're doing and all of the contributions that EERE and other parts of the agency are making to a clean energy economy. So thanks to everybody at EERE. This is our last briefing of 2024. We will take a little bit of a break and then we'll return at the start of the next Congress, the 119th Congress. We just put the survey slide up. If anyone has comments, please feel free to use that survey. It only takes a couple minutes and we read every response. And so if you have any feedback for us. In January, our first briefing will be on, it will resume our Resilient and Healthy Rivers briefing series will resume on January 15th. You won't want to miss that. And our Congressional Climate Camp series of briefings will begin on Wednesday, January 29th. You can sign up for all of the Congressional Climate Camp briefings or some if you visit us online at www.eesi.org. We're going to be covering some really incredible topics, probably a little look at the national labs too, in case that is especially appetizing. That'll be a really great briefing. So be sure to visit us online, sign up for Climate Change Solutions so you never miss anything. There'll be changes in leadership in Congress next year. There'll be a new administration next year. That means there's going to be a lot of turnover in congressional offices. But that does not mean that climate impacts will stop. Unfortunately, climate impacts are likely to get a little worse. And it does not mean that the clean energy economy will stop creating jobs. And in fact, as we've heard today, the clean energy deployment will likely continue and attract even more private sector investment. So we have a lot of work to do, and EESI will absolutely be there for our core audience of congressional staff, you and your colleagues who need access to nonpartisan, science-based information about climate change topics. You can count on us to be timely, relevant, accessible, and practiced. Please stay signed up for Climate Change Solutions. It'll kick off in the new year. I think January 14th is our first issue of 2025. Forward that resource to new folks joining your offices, to folks that you're working with in your office and other offices on both sides of the aisle, and help them stay up to date as well with everything happening in climate change, clean energy, and the environmental policy and advocacy communities. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll be back in 2025, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you.